Find more great shows or join the team at sport-social.co.uk.
Hello, welcome back to the Masterclass. As you know, it's myself, Haider, and I'm joined by Rob Blanchette as always. Guys, make sure you give us a follow on Twitter at TF Masterclass. Make sure you give myself a follow at Haider_Rubbani and give Rob a follow as well at _Rob_B. Rob, on a weekend where our rivals all showed their worth, fantastic victories for them. You saw Chelsea smash Norwich for 7. You saw City without a striker go and score 4. And obviously we lost 5-0. We were annihilated. We were embarrassed. We were destroyed by our bitterest rivals, Liverpool. It is a really, for me, that felt like the worst defeat that I've seen for Manchester United. And I don't know where we go from here. Well, I do know where we go from here. The manager's position is untenable for me, Rob.
Well, yes, hello to all of our audience. As you can see today, I'm wearing black with a black Manchester United badge. Why is that? Well, I think what we saw against Liverpool was the death of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's tenure at Manchester United. Everything that was bad about the performance, everything that's bad about the football club at the moment came to pass. Everything we predicted in the last few weeks, unfortunately, came to where we saw it. You know, Liverpool are on a crest of a wave, turned up, didn't even particularly do their best match. They just put together their normal game, and we just capitulated because our system is broken. Where you go from here, you know, I think this is one of these situations now with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer where people need to take the emotion out of it. And I always say this, you know, even last season when people were getting upset about what they were seeing in terms of the quality of the football, and I was saying, give it time. And it was right to give it time. I think he earned that time. I think he's now run out of time. You know, the bell is ringing. So we're going to talk about all of that today. We're going to talk about why it went so badly wrong against Liverpool, but why this season has been an abject failure. And we're also going to talk about what Manchester United should do next.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You know, interaction's been really fantastic for us. And look, we're going to have the conversation frankly today. We're going to be assessing both sides, Rob. We have to. We're a balanced podcast. We like to think we are. We try and assess every single angle. But unfortunately, we're at this situation, Rob, where we're sitting here and thinking, I'm sitting here thinking it's time for Ole to go. His position is untenable. And I just want to bring up, we will talk about the game because we have to talk about the game. And look, we were 2-0 down after 13 minutes. Before we even do that, Rob, I'm just going to bring up a few statistics. So we have 1 point in our last 16 Premier League games. We have 14 out of a possible 27. We're 7th in the Premier League. We have 15 goals conceded. We've scored 16. So our goal difference is +1. That's a joint 4th worst defence in the league. Our defence is worth £220 million. We've just lost 5-0 to Liverpool. This is awful, Rob. This is almost relegation form. I mean, how long can this go on? This is when you spend all that money in the summer and you look at the squad at our disposal, it's not good enough.
No, well, I said before Atalanta, he had 5 games, and people said to me, oh, wow, that's kind of a bit of a sweeping statement. That's a bit almost judgmental, giving, you know, putting a kind of time frame on it. The reason why I said 5 games is in that 5 games, you can kind of see whether you're going to get over the brow of the hill and back on track, or whether it's just completely fallen to pieces. When you look at the Atalanta game, you win the game 3-2, but let's be honest, it wasn't a good performance. First half was bad, and then you go back to your moments team, your Ronaldo-isms, you win the match 3-2, everyone's happy for all of 5 minutes, but then you run into Liverpool. And this is a Liverpool team that is by design, play 4-3-3, that by design is here to win trophies, and that by design is not really interested in what's going on at Manchester United, they're only interested in what's going on with themselves. So they came to Old Trafford, and we were lambs to a slaughter, and that was that. He's got 3 games now. I said I'm still a test of this kind of 5-game notion, because when you look at those games, they're all very different in terms of setup of what you need to do to win those matches. But you can't get away with them with luck, Haider. So when you run into Manchester City at Old Trafford next, in the same way with Liverpool, luck is not going to cut it. If your system of 4-2-3-1 is not working, if you are not pressing correctly, and I'm going to talk about the press a little bit in a second because I think it's really important, But if you're in those notions, you go away to Atalanta in the Champions League. If you do all these things and you don't play well, Haider, then you get sacked. It's as simple as that. And this is now not about Ole in or Ole out. This is about what the Glazers look at for their football club, because they own it. They're the ones who have to make these choices, and how they see the progress of the season going. But then there's other bigger questions, like the January transfer window is coming up. And do they want to invest in a manager who has a set of results and a set of statistics, like as you just read out there, that are currently on the table? I think the honest answer to that is no. No board will back what they're seeing at the moment in this project. And you can't sack the board. You can't sack the players. So unfortunately, it's the coaches that go.
Absolutely, Robin. Guys, we will actually talk about the United way a little bit later on. Keep on getting your questions in, and we'll try and answer as many of them as possible. But Rob, let's actually talk about some of the issues. So this has been a problem, I think, during Ole's reign, and it's not necessarily his fault. When you look at that right-hand side, it's not particularly strong. But you signed Jadon Sancho. You signed a player for 75 million. You chased him for 2 years. He's your right-sided player. Doesn't get a game. And when he does play, he plays off the left. We have been far too reliant on our left side for years now. Our left side isn't working. So what happens? Manchester United's attack is poor. You know, our central players, a serious problem. Fred and McTominay like to dive into tackles. I mean, you play them to have solidity, right, Rob? You have them play them to have solidity. We were cut open in 3 passes for that first goal. There's absolutely zero discipline off the ball from every single member of the team. I want to talk about the single press that we were doing where one player was pressing, because that was a disaster. We're too narrow from back to front, and our creative players are getting dragged out of position all the time. There's no structure in the final third, and we don't create enough. It's just problems back to front. There's no way that we can sit here, Rob, and accept what's going on and think things are going to get better when the evidence isn't there on the pitch.
Yeah, let's forget about what we want to accept and what we don't want to accept, and let's just keep it ground down to the bits that you were just saying there, right? So we've got here, you see the team, the shape, the 4-2-3-1. Don't worry too much about the ratings in this match, because it doesn't matter. You lost 5-0. It doesn't matter. You know, one team played really well, one team didn't. But we also do have the heat map. So we can kind of pull up the team heat maps, because I think this is the bit where when we're talking about the press and about the shape and stuff like that, it's really, really important. So United played against Liverpool a kind of individual pressing system. What do I mean by that? Well, as we know, Liverpool play with team press, 4-3-3. Front 3 go, first wave. Second wave go, second wave. That's the press. That's how most Premier League presses work. Yesterday, Manchester United were trying to do individual man presses from all parts of the pitch. Unfortunately, the one place where you have to do that and where that starts from, if you play that system, is centre forward. And Ronaldo, once again, didn't do anything like a press. He played his position, and you wanted to get the ball to him in and around the box. But what happened? Liverpool didn't really have any problems with it because there was no real pressing. For Bruno Fernandes was pressing in other parts of the pitch he shouldn't be pressing. I've said that week after week. You then had points where Mason Greenwood was trying to push up against the left back and Wan-Bissaka behind him. It was ill-timed. So what happened? Liverpool were just passing through it. And then you looked at Fred and McTominay, who were kind of sitting much more as defensive midfielders yesterday rather than a double pivot. They were sat more in front of the back four than we've seen in other games. And as you just said there, diving in, ill-timed again. And you can see it's panic, Haider. It's panic stations. You know, you're looking at the opponent, and someone next to me in the stadium described it as like a Rocky film. And it was like a Rocky film because it was like you're just on the rope, just getting absolutely hammered. And you're just trying to do anything you can to get out, to stay alive, to not hit the deck. And of course, United hit the deck 5 times, and deservedly so. So I just think with that pressing system, if Man United are not going to be a pressing team, you know, and you're not going to do it properly, and your players are not going to do it properly, don't be a pressing team. Be a low block. Be compressed. Sit your 3 who are there. You just said they're flair players. Sit your flair players deeper and allow Ronaldo to go and roam on his own. Then you can say to Ronaldo, do you know what? You're not part of the defensive formation. You know, you don't have to come back into these areas. You don't even need to press. Just go and stay up there and just sit on, you know, Van Dijk's shoulder and just stay on side, and we'll do the rest. United didn't do that either. So I think there is this kind of urgent need from Solskjaer and also from United fans to see United be an energetic, high-pressing team. But unless you go and do the work, Haider, and you get it right on the training pitch, you can't fake it. And United are trying to fake it at the moment. United trying to fake being this kind of, Man United way of high octane football, and we're gonna go after teams. Ole, even his presser, said things like, we need to be that kind of team that kind of dominates the game, goes, shows people we're in control. You're not in control of anything. So we're going to break those bits down today and kind of look at them in a little bit more detail, and really kind of talk about solutions, because it is about solutions now. Like, this is what United will be doing behind the scenes. Ole will be there, today with his coaches saying, what can we do to actually fix this and make us not look like a complete nonsense?
Rob, I'm going to read out a few comments here, some great comments here. Guys, keep your comments coming in and questions as well. We'll try and answer as many as possible. So good comment. His own leaves McFred exposed. Either he needs to stay or everyone needs to press with him. And another comment here about McFred. It's nice to see. Look, McFred aren't the solution, Rob. We've said this many, many times. And actually, myself and you have been battered for this because we've turned around and said McFred are Manchester United's, Ole's best combination because of what he wants to do, the way he wants to play. He wants to be solid. But look, as the comment says here, I feel sorry for McFred. They're doing the winger's job as well as their own. They are the scapegoats. They're not the solution going forward, Rob, but unfortunately, when the system is so disorganized and disjointed, I've seen people say, oh, well, if we had a defensive midfielder, all will be okay. No, it's not, because it's just a mess back to front. I just want to bring up this heat map here, because this is very, very telling, Rob. And it adds to the point that you're trying to make about when Ronaldo was pressing. But on the right-hand side, you can see Liverpool's heat maps. If you're listening to this on Spotify, come over to YouTube and have a look at it. It's the visualizations are a little bit better than listening to it on audio. But you can see the areas where Liverpool completely overloaded, where the wide areas. Compare that to Manchester United. It's absolutely stark in comparison to what the teams want to do. And, Manchester United haven't done this all season. It shows you Manchester United are narrow. It shows you as well, you can see Ronaldo, who's almost isolated at the top. It's the same issues that we've seen recurring. And I don't really know what Ole can do to fix that, because he hasn't found that balance.
I could tell you exactly what he needs to do to fix it. It's just that it won't get fixed because he can't do it. So I think this is where we come to. So let's look at these two heat maps, because they are really important. So the Liverpool heat map on the right, 4-3-3 pressing system. You can see where the heat is. So the primary areas of the pitch that have got that heat, you said are there in the wider areas. It's actually the wider areas of the midfield. So take the centre circle as your starting point. So that's kind of where the middle of the pitch is, of course. And what are Liverpool trying to do in that heat map? Well, you can see that there is no heat up top. You don't need, in a pressing system, to have heat in the striker position. You don't. What you need to do is you need to stay compact in the middle and have that press work as one, as a unison. So Liverpool's presser on the right-hand side, that is all of their team pushing into those areas, saying to United, you will not play through us. That's that first point. So that's a defensive mindset. But of course, what does that do? It allows you to play in transition. So when you win the ball back in those areas, and that's where all that heat is with Liverpool, that's where you score from. You get the ball just the wrong side of the halfway line, and you go in two passes and you're in the opposition box and you score. Liverpool did that yesterday. They do it every week. They scored 5 goals. There is no surprise. But when you look at United's heat map, there is no heat anywhere. Why is that? That's because everyone is static. No one really knows what they're doing. And when they are pressing, they're doing it so infrequently. There's not even showing up on the heat map. There's actually a bit in the middle of the United map there, which is kind of a bit scary. That's blue, which means that no one was really in that area at all. Now that's the area you want your number 10 to operate in. Yeah, he should be lighting up that part, or at least a striker maybe dipping in and out, helping there to be more bodies in that area. So literally that's where Virgil van Dijk stands, right? So when he's on the halfway line, we kind of show there that not one Man United player was within 10 yards of him. That means Virgil van Dijk can start every attack in his sleep because there is no press. So we're saying, how do you fix these things? If I'm Ole and I'm looking at this, I'm going to show my players this. And if I'm telling them to press, if I'm saying, in training, this is what I want us to do. I want us to be more dynamic. I want us to be more aggressive. That heat map shows that everyone is on holiday. I think the unfortunate thing is, though, Haider, is that I think the system is still 4-2-3-1, as we said, a narrow system, and they're playing these kind of individual pressing systems across the pitch, like Greenwood pressing the left back. It doesn't work. You can't do it in the Premier League. If you do it in the Premier League, you lose. So this is where we get to now with the Solskjaer question about what happens next, because it's not that I don't think United have got a set of players that can do these things. Look, we saw last year against Man City that when United played a press and Bruno was kind of the point of the press at the top, that they played it quite well. And they played it for, I would say, 80 or 90% of the game in a kind of controlled manner that showed that they could do it. Unfortunately, I think some of the changes in personnel this season, and I don't want to mention the R word at the top of the team, because I know everyone gets upset about Ronaldo and they don't want to talk about it, and then there are other people who want to talk about it like non-stop. If you don't press from the top, you lose football matches. Doesn't matter how great you are, doesn't matter how good you are in and around the box, you won't get in the box because you can't press. So all of these things, unfortunately, are for Ole to solve. And I do think we've now got to a point where he cannot solve it, his coaches cannot solve it, and you now need another coach to come in and fix those things.
Yeah, well said. And Rob, this is a good comment here from Gary saying there's no balance and cohesion in the team. We can't play with 4 strikers who creates something we said on the last masterclass, Rob. We actually pulled up the stats, didn't we? So if you guys haven't seen that, go back. Myself and Rob discussed when you look at Ronaldo's statistics, Rashford, you look at Mason's, and you look at Bruno's. All of them are, barring Bruno, because he is actually very progressive. He's up there in the 97th percentile across Europe in his position when it comes to his creating, his progressive passes and his creative passes. But when you look at that front three, and Ronaldo needs service, right? That's what Ronaldo thrives off. We saw against Atalanta, he put the ball in the box, he's going to score. But when you had Mason and Rashford playing, and neither of them are the most creative, they like to go and shoot first rather than put the ball in the box. There's no service, and it's the same issue that's been reoccurring. But Rob, I actually do want to talk about, we will touch on sort of Ole's future and what you've heard. Obviously, you're a journalist, you have sources at the club. There's questions here saying, if the club are to go down the caretaker route, either on a short term or until the end of the season, what are the options? What have you heard? Because there are reports coming out. I mean, I'm very shocked that we're sitting here and it's 20 past 12 and we haven't heard. Well, the club's been quiet. We're hearing a few things that have come out. Fabrizio Romano said a few things, but his position's untenable, Rob. If you can't lose your job after losing 5-0 at home in that manner against Liverpool, how much worse does it have to get? Does this season have to be written off, that we're getting to December and we're out of Champions League, we have all the cups, and it's just another season where we're scrambling for fourth? We need to be proactive, Rob, and there's still a chance to save what's left of this season, but we can't carry on, sort of flogging a dead horse as we are at the moment.
Well, it depends how dead the horse is, Haider. So, one awful, catastrophic defeat, and of course, you're going to get talked about in terms of losing your job. And I think that's the right way to talk about it. What have I heard about from the football club? Well, Manchester United are not the kind of team that end up knee-jerking. This board will do the right thing, I think, and actually talk about it. They'll actually talk it behind the scenes, but it's about what conclusion you come to. So I did not expect Ole to resign. I really didn't. When he did his presser yesterday and talked about, this is the project, we carry on, we're too close, I know these boys, we'll pull it out the fire. You could kind of tell maybe the party line he's going to play, and that doesn't particularly surprise me. It's kind of what Ole always does. Plus, he signed a big contract not so long ago. If he's going to go, it would need to be done by mutual consent. That means that contract would need to be paid up, or at least part of that contract. So I think Ole will keep fighting until the end. And the Rocky analogy is a really kind of good one for him. I think he'll keep swinging. It's more about what's happening on a football pitch and how long does it go. So I think that when Man City come to town, if you get hammered there, if you go to Atalanta and you lose that game and then risk, obviously, your position in the Champions League, I think the conversation changes very sharply in terms of what happens next. I don't think United will go down the caretaker route again. I think that even though they got that initial reaction the last time they did that from the team, it's not really where the club is at the moment. So the club have spent a lot of money on players and on wages in recent times, and they have rebuilt the kind of core infrastructure of the team. So you've got lots of good players, but now you haven't got a system that reflects those good players. You said there about Ronaldo needing service. None of that is a kind of party trick. We all know he needs service, but there is nothing within the system that suggests that they can give that service. Like you mentioned Bruno Fernandes there, in the top kind of 5% in Europe as a creator. But I could sit here and do a 2-hour show on why Bruno Fernandes isn't creating properly. So, there's all of these issues that stats don't always show. But the core stats are there in place. And we're going to, again, look at those in a second about where United are in the Premier League for their core percentiles. Because it shows that United at the moment are, say, a bottom 5 team in the Premier League. And if you're a bottom 5 team in the Premier League, then what is the point? You're going to run out of time. So Solskjaer has got the chance to fix this. He's got like 2 or 3 games, and I think we need to see something different. But there was also a lack of hope on that football pitch yesterday. And I think hope's been ebbing away from the players really since the first game of the season. You've seen it that they've been trying to do stuff, but they're running through mud, running through quicksand. Nothing looks like, they came off the pitch yesterday, Haider. I was in that football stadium. They all walked off that pitch and they all looked like they've been in front of a firing squad. Yeah. And that wasn't just the result that made them feel like that. It's because whatever they're being asked to do is not working. And they're going to be going into that dressing room, smashing things up and getting crazy and getting annoyed because what they're being asked to do isn't working. They need to do something different. And that then, of course, is on Ole and the coaches.
Just to have the confidence, Rob, that they have a solution to this, and they've shown nothing to suggest they have. I mean, you can see here up on the screen, Rob, this is from Who Scored, and it has a nice little breakdown of Manchester United's strengths in general as a team and Liverpool's strengths in general as a team. You can see Liverpool, obviously, they are one of the best coached sides. I think one of the most stark things, Rob, yesterday is that midfield for Liverpool had Naby Keita, who's starting to hit some really good form, actually, after a couple of difficult years at Liverpool. It had a 36-year-old James Milner, who's functional at best. Let's not say he's a world beater. And Jordan Henderson, again, hardly the most stellar name, absolutely destroyed us. And this is where that conversation, I don't think when you look from 1 to 11 for Manchester United and look at 1 to 11 at Liverpool, that Liverpool's players are much better than Manchester United across the board. I don't think that's the case. But when you're having a look at some of these strengths that Liverpool have, I mean, just to pick out a few, for example, the counterattacks are strong, attacking down the wings, defending set pieces, something that we're shocking at doing, creating chances through individual skills, through balls. There's so many different ways in there to sort of skin the cat. Let's call it that. There's so many different ways that Liverpool find to score goals. Obviously, they've probably got the best player in the world. They have got the best player in the world right now in Mo Salah. But they have so many different ways that plan A doesn't work, plan B will work. Manchester United's plan A isn't working. There's no plan B. And I'm sitting here thinking, why are they possibly giving Ole another 2 to 3 games? We can very much lose to Spurs. Manchester City, I'm dreading. I just don't understand that sort of reasoning when yesterday felt like the end. The players looked disillusioned. The fans were unhappy. I'm not sure how long we can carry on going like this.
Well, you can't carry on going like this, which is why managers lose their jobs. And that's the kind of core point here that I think I'm making as well. It's kind of saying, how long can it go on for? Well, it will just stop eventually. It happens with every coach. You get to a certain point and it becomes, like you use the word untenable. It only becomes untenable really right at the very, very, very end. So at the moment it feels untenable, but he's probably got a little bit more space to breathe, but it's not much. Just looking at this kind of the points we've got here from Who Scored, there's one really, really important point here with the Liverpool strengths and weaknesses. So Liverpool's big weakness is stopping opponents creating chances. They're very weak at it. Now, this is why Man United were in this game for a period yesterday on Sunday, because they did create chances, United. They had the first big chance of the game with Bruno Fernandes, and then they did have chances where they got in and around the box. So Ronaldo got his chance in the second half. He was offside again. He gets it. He turns on the right, puts it in the bottom corner. So that's great. Ronaldo's a great finisher, isn't he? But United are not creating any chances to exploit Liverpool's one weakness. And you just said there about Liverpool's midfield and about how well they played and kind of why the game went the way it did. The reason why that midfield worked is because of the system and the coaching. That's why it worked. Not because of the names, not because of the individual talent. Liverpool will pick a 3 in there that go and do the job. So this is why in months gone by, when we talked about McFred, why in a 4-2-3-1, if you pick the dogs in there to do the dogs work and you get everyone else to do the other bits of the work, in theory, it should work. Last year, Manchester United came second in the league. No mean feat. We don't celebrate it, but no mean feat. You get to a European final. Again, no mean feat. It shows that there are things that are working, that you're getting somewhere. This year, none of that is working. All of those things, all of that ground that's been made up over a 2-year period to play a 4-2-3-1 system with a double pivot that has worked to a certain point has now stopped working. And it's because I think of the shape of everything around the double pivot as well. So like we're talking about the wide areas, we're talking about the striker function. And then we're also, I think, really, really key talking about what the number 10 does in front of a double pivot, whether he drops in very, very deep or whether he goes closer to the striker. And then it becomes, hey, about the shape of the back four. So when everything in front of the double pivot's gone wrong, the back four gets nervous, it gets weak. The fullbacks then don't know what to do. Do I come and go? Last year, Luke Shaw, best left back in the world. This year, doesn't even look like he is even the best left back at the club. So the issue with that, I'm telling you, is shape. If you get the shape right and you get your press right and you decide that all the individual jobs work within your system, you don't get what happened at Old Trafford against Liverpool. And you don't get that, I think, over a course of 12, 13 games now, because this has been a kind of continual disease running through Manchester United's tactics since the Leeds game. And we've seen it, and it's unwrapped itself, it's unraveled, and it's got worse, and it's got worse, and it's got worse. And you can see them in real time trying to fix it on a football pitch, but they're not getting anywhere near what you would describe as a fix.
Yeah, and the question was there, how and why has it changed? I mean, you've labelled some of the issues. I think the fullbacks is a massive, massive point, Rob. That Manchester United, as I mentioned earlier on the show, we were very reliant on left-hand side last season. Well, when you've got Luke Shaw dropping off the face of the earth like he has, Harry Maguire as well, two players that really stood out for England in the Euros, who had great seasons last season. When that whole left side of your defence goes, then you're in all sorts of problems. Actually, I tweeted this yesterday that since Varane has been out, Rob, we've conceded 4 at Leicester, we've conceded 2 at Atalanta, we conceded 5 against Liverpool. I mean, that is absolutely shocking. And it was almost, we mentioned Varane, didn't we? One of the biggest things we loved about Varane was how he was so clever at not diving in, knowing when to commit. It was fantastic to see the way that he jockeyed, the way that he read the game, knowing when to stick a twist. He was almost holding that defense together, Rob. That's the frightening thing when you look at the amount of money spent. And that's where you can have all the best individuals in the world. You look at that defense. I mean, Wan-Bissaka has been an issue, but he's not the only problem. But you look at Maguire, you look at Shaw, you look at Varane. That's a very strong defense. Yet the organization is absolutely shocking. And this all just comes down to coaching. You can give Ole more players of quality. Yes, a midfielder would help. But ultimately, if the shape is as disjointed as it is, the same result's going to happen. And we've just been, it's like we've had this discussion week on week on the masterclass, haven't we, Rob? And you took a lot of stick after the Newcastle game, and you said you were unhappy at what you saw. But as we've gone week on week, we've got worse and worse and worse. And unfortunately, I think we're at a position now where it's very, very difficult.
Yeah, I'd like to say, I think with the Varane thing, I think if Rafa Varane plays against Liverpool, United might lose 4-0, not 5. I don't testify to the point that Varane held the defence together over that period. I think he was doing his job, but I think there were plenty of times where he made mistakes, and United conceded goals because of his mistakes in terms of coverage. So I think this is not about individual players. This is not about Luke Shaw. This is not about Harry Maguire. This is not about Cristiano Ronaldo, as individuals on a football pitch and what their skill set is. This is about when you have a system and you are confident in your system, Haider, you play better. You don't make those mistakes because you know where everyone is. You have a kind of radar in your head that when the ball comes to your feet, you know where everyone is in the system. The problem with Man United is that no one knows where anyone is. So like when Mason goes and does a press on the right, Wan-Bissaka should be going with him. That's not Wan-Bissaka's fault. It's just that they're not in time to do it. So like it's not working across the pitch. So it looks really bad to the eye. We kind of go, wow, look at that. That press is pathetic. But that's got to be perfected on a training pitch. And I think this is it now. Kind of, we look at these stats here you've just brought up, let's go through them. But it shows really that the issues at Manchester United are now fundamental issues. They're not like week to week, we saw this, that was good, but that was bad. Now we're seeing all of these. It's happening over and over again. And this is why our rank in the Premier League is so bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about them here. So we've got this from Sky Sports, and we had to put the picture of Sir Alex. I mean, that was probably the hardest thing to watch, and not in Man United's shocking defence, but seeing Sir Alex just sit there, and it was just absolutely shocking. He was all of us, wasn't he, Rob, as a fan? But look, Manchester United's defensive stats this season, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, our defence is 16th in the Premier League. 16th, Rob. That's relegation form. 15 conceded. 1 clean sheet in 21 games. Awful. You spent 220 million on the defense. We're 18th in the league. I mean, you're probably looking at the two bottom teams. I believe it's Norwich and Newcastle, who are below us. Shocking. Shots on target faced, 43. That's us down again, very low near the bottom at 14th. Tackles. We play McFred to break things up and, obviously to play the ball forward. 104 tackles. That's last. Errors leading to goals. To shots, sorry. 8. That's also us last in the league. And then XG against, that's 14.3. Again, we're sitting at 15th. These are damning statistics, Rob. And when people say, give Ollie more time, he can turn this around. The statistics are there to show, and it might be 9-10 games in the season, but the stats don't lie. This is the sample size, whether big or small, that this is what's happening on a week-on-week basis. This is not good enough when you spent £410 million on a squad to challenge for the Premier League.
No, it's certainly not good enough. And these are the stats that get you sacked. So losing games is the ultimate stat, losing 5-0, 5 goals against in a game at Old Trafford against your biggest rivals. That's the kind of the performance that pushes you towards the door. But it's these kind of core metrics that really unravel the bigger picture of what's happening at Manchester United. So, 16th in the league for goals conceded, and 1 clean sheet in 18. 1 clean sheet now, 18th. I think it's 1 clean sheet in 20 games. David De Gea is playing out of his skin at the moment. He really, really is. And he can't keep a clean sheet, and it's not his fault. So it's the system in front of him. Shots faced, 14th in the league. Tackles, 20th. So it shows here that you're not even getting anywhere near the opponent. You're not even being able to get a tackle in. People talk about Wan-Bissaka being the best tackling fullback in the game or whatnot and all this. It doesn't really matter, does it? You're not getting your tackles in the key areas. Our 2 dogs of Fred and McTominay, we just said there, they're not getting to their tackles because of the shape of the team. Errors leading to goals, worst in the league. So this is the thing. It's a combination sometimes of individual errors when you break down games and systematic errors. What you're getting at United is a whole lot of systematic issues that then leads to the individual errors. So that's why we sit here. It's not really worth talking about Harry Maguire. It's not worth talking about Victor Lindelof, and it ain't worth talking about a player that's not even in the team at the moment because he's injured, even though he's a new arrival from Real Madrid, and Rafael Varane. Those things are not the problem. The problem is these metrics that we're seeing off the back of the system, which tells you the system must change. If 4-2-3-1 is doing this to you, then you have to change it, and you have to change it in the next game. When the team sheet was read out yesterday, Haider, there was lots of huffs and puffs of when people heard, obviously, the kind of double pivot, McTominay, Fred, and all of this. And it was the same team, wasn't it, that started the Atalanta game. And everyone was kind of saying, how can that be? How can that be? And I was stood there saying, because this is what he does. This is his team. This is the team he trusts. So it's not about favoritism. He trusts this team to do what he thinks is the right thing to do on a football pitch. But these metrics are telling you none of that is happening and that it's not working. And unfortunately, this is where the project ends, because you cannot be in the bottom 5 in the Premier League for these kind of metrics if you want to win a title. And if you even want to come top 4, Haider, you can't be like this with these metrics. You cannot have an XG against you of 14.3 and be 15th in the league. That's the kind of metrics you'd expect for Wolverhampton Wanderers or Southampton or a team kind of at the bottom. You'd be looking at Watford and saying, shots faced 43, 14th. That's all right for them. It's not all right for Manchester United. So this is where it becomes untenable, because if you go through the next 2 or 3 matches and you get beaten, these metrics get worse. You become 20th in every one of them, and then that truly is relegation form.
Absolutely, Rob. There's a comment here saying, you're good friends with Jamie, aren't you, from The Guardian? Jamie said here that Conte's keen on the United job with players doubting Ollie. We did a great podcast with David Amoyal, who is very well connected with Serie A news, big fan of Conte as well, and he gave some fantastic insights. Make sure you check that out. Conte wants Manchester United job. I'm just going to bring up this tweet here, just to credit at Lou Reformed, and it's the last 10 games of Manchester United for the last managers. So we had Jose Mourinho, he had 3 losses and 12 goals conceded. David Moyes, 5 losses, 10 goals conceded. Louis van Gaal, 2 losses, 11 goals conceded. And then you're looking at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, 5 losses and 19 goals conceded. Rob, if we're going on the basis of what we saw with previous managers, and a lot of managers did get sacked after the Liverpool game as well, didn't they? Jose did. I believe Moyes did as well. When you're having a look at this, what can you say? There's only one way this is going to go right now. And there are talks about Conte. There are talks about Zidane. I mean, surely they're on the brink now of taking the job.
Yes. And I think that, we look at these kind of last 10 game stats for those managers. It did feel in those 10 games it was the end for all of them. I think Moyes maybe was the one who was the most unlucky, because just before, obviously, he left, his team went to Bayern Munich and actually played quite well, but got knocked out. But there was kind of signs that he was maybe getting it together, but post-Fergie project, it was kind of falling to pieces, and they didn't really trust him from the start. When you look at this, you look at kind of 5 losses, 19 goals conceded, we know it's bad, so we don't even have to really assess that. It's about, again, what happens next, how do you kind of move forward? I don't think that United, in the kind of quandary that they're in at the moment, are going to find a way out of this mess with this set of coaches, with this set of players, and with this manager. Now, these hiring line from, in order, so let's do it in order from Moyes, Van Gaal to Mourinho to now Solskjaer. I'll say this, I put my neck on the block for all of those at the time. And at the time, I wanted every one of them. Yeah. So when Moyes came in, I said I'd back him because I thought it was maybe the right person in terms of what Ferguson was saying about the continuation at the football club. Backed him until it got to the end. With Van Gaal, he was my number one choice. I wanted someone who was experienced, a winner. He was doing really well with Holland. Obviously, we know what they were doing at the World Cup at that point. And it was also the kind of the Van Persie factor. So I thought, yes, good manager, good fit. We always talk about fit in the United way. We'll talk about the United way at the end of this segment. That worked for me until those 2 years are up. I saw enough in that 2 years to say, I think he should go. Jose comes in, same reasons. He's a winner. You want him to come in, reshape the team. He'd won the Premier League only kind of 12 months before with Chelsea, managed Real Madrid, Hall of Fame coach, as I like to call him. We got 2 years of decent football, of a couple of trophies, and to a point where we got to year 3. And then that third album in a musician's career can sometimes be difficult. Jose got there and he hit the wall. And it was the right thing to do. So people always remember me as being anti-Jose. I was not anti-Jose for 2 years. I wasn't. I was saying give him time. So we gave him time. He cut his own throat. He poisoned the club and he was gone. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, 2 years at the club, good building job, decent recruitment, finding a way, finding a methodology, going from the edge of the Champions League to in the Champions League, coming third, then coming second last year, getting a little bit closer, but still with fallacies, with still problems, and then buying players along the way who fit your system, who play a slightly better brand of football. And in the third year, and we're in year 3 now of this project, he has hit the wall. So in the same way that I backed Ole for those 2 years to give him the time, I now don't back Ole because we're at that stage where you've seen enough. So 5 losses, 19 goals conceded, I think is purely fair, indicative of where United should be. That's, I think, the right level of results to the form. We've seen now that results are now catching up with performances. Like you said there about Newcastle, I got a lot of heat for that Newcastle observation when I said, yeah, we won, but there are things in the system that are broken. And if it carries on, we will start to lose games. We're now losing games. So that's certainly not a told you so, but that was just, I think, what we could see on the football pitch. And now Ole's going to get maybe 1 or 2 chances to really either completely pull a rabbit out of the hat and fundamentally fix everything, which I don't think he can, or you're going to lose these 2 games and then you're going to be knocking on the door for another big manager. And I think United will go back to that way of looking for a manager with acumen, with experience, who has done stuff before at bigger clubs, who will come to this team and say to these big stars, these big players, your Ronaldos, your Brunos and everyone, your Paul Pogba, that I can help you start winning matches in a context of challenging for trophies, not just winning the next game, Haider, but winning, the next 10 and going on a run of unbeaten in 20. This Man United team is not going to go through the next 10 and be unbeaten. There's absolutely no chance of it with these tactics. So unfortunately, that is where the manager ends up carrying the can. And it will be sad to see Ole go, but I think it would be the right thing to see at the moment. Now, I think he's used all his chips up at the poker table. It's the end of the game. Thank you very much, Ole. You did a great job for 2 years, and in year 3, it just combusted.
Before we move on and end with the United way, because let's talk about that. Some good questions on that, Rob. Who is the most likely manager of Manchester United? Say Ole does get sacked, and who would you like to see? I'm leaning towards Conte. Obviously, we had that conversation with David, and I've looked into him a little bit more. He's got Premier League experience. He's a fantastic tactician. He will get us organised. Inter were the top scoring team last season in Serie A. His Chelsea team also scored a lot of goals. I believe they scored about 2.5 goals per game when they were here. And I think that's what Manchester United. There's a bit of a concern with Zidane that you might see Zidane come in and then maybe he'll be for a year and then go to the France job. I just think Conte for right now, United don't need someone to build the squad. It's not a rebuild anymore, Rob. There's 1 or 2 players I think we need to add. The squad is there, in my opinion. It needs to win now. It needs someone to take the squad, control the egos, coach them properly, and go to the Tuchels and the Klopps and the Guardiolas of the world and front up to them tactically, because we're playing like amateurs at the moment. So, what have you heard, and who do you think is the most likely solution for Manchester United?
Right. Well, first of all, Antonio Conte wants a job. He wants a job. That's where he stands on it. He's ready. He is on the end of his kind of contract with Inter in terms of whether he gets paid or not from them. And the general chitter chatter is that he is willing to kind of forsake that money so he can go and get a big football club. So he's a coach that wants to manage stellar players and be in a position to win at the top football team. So obviously he started there. He was at Juventus. We know what he did at Inter. We know exactly what he did at Chelsea. He is a bit of an Anglophile. He wants to come back to England. He enjoys being here. He enjoyed his life in London with Chelsea. So for him, they are all those kind of positive tick boxes there that kind of say to him, yeah, I'd like to go and do this again. He's been very vocal that even when he was at Inter, that his favourite league was the Premier League and that the Premier League is of the highest standard than Serie A. He went and won Serie A after kind of a couple of years of being there. And again, fixing it through a system at Inter with good players. That's kind of how you do it. That's the best way to be. You talked about the United way there. And I think that this is really important to kind of address, because the United way is not what we're seeing. The United way is not what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was putting out on a football pitch. 4-2-3-1 was never the United way. The United way is putting trust in youth, playing attacking football, being brave, and actually having a system that allows you to go and hurt the opponent. None of those things are really happening. And the youth point, I think, is one of the most important points, because you're playing Mason Greenwood, but you're not playing Jadon Sancho. You just wouldn't spend 80 million on him. He's still a young player. You know, you're looking at maybe someone like Ethan Laird now, who's at Swansea, who's a young player. And I'd be getting him back to the football club yesterday. Yeah, I'd be saying, I've got a problem at right back. I'm going to play you. We've got Hannibal in midfield, who's showing behind the scenes. Obviously, he's had a couple of injuries and knocks and whatnot, but he's showing that he's probably ready to have a go. You know, we've got forwards who are kind of prodigious for their age group. You know, we talk about Elanga. You know, why are you not giving Elanga a go when things are not working, when things are failing? Why are you not finding a way to get youth in? Because that is the United way. Yeah. So what we're seeing now is not the United way. So let's dispel that straight away. The coaching is not the United way. This is not Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United. This is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Manchester United. And we know that he has gone from being a person that wants to play attacking football 2 years ago. He said it a lot. Those first 20 games were crazy attacking games, 4-3-3, raiding forward, mad counter-attacking. He was doing all of that. He's not doing that anymore. So he's not doing the United way. So I think we need a coach now who's going to come in and organise. And my favourite, definitely, I called for those other managers that I said came into the football club. Every one of them I called for and backed and said they were my manager, the one I wanted to see. The manager I want to see now is Antonio Conte. I want to see Antonio Conte because I think he'll come to United, he'll play 3-5-2 or he'll play 3-4-3, and he will get United in the Champions League this year. Because I think, you know, the point we're at now is about maybe a bit of reconciliation with the players, finding a way to get them winning games again and to get them back in the top four. We're not going to challenge Liverpool. We're too far behind them both stylistically and tactically. And we're too far behind City when City beat us this week. I'm sorry to sound like a downer, but that's what's going to happen. They'll beat us when they come to Old Trafford next, because that's just where we are. But I think you need a manager that will come in and will take the big players and will say, this is my system. I've won with this system in England. I've won with this system in Italy. I've coached the best players at Juventus. He was the manager that brought Paul Pogba through at Juventus. So let's remember that. I think that's really important. And I think he can sit there at a table with these guys, with the big egos at Man United. And I think he can say to them, you play my way or it's the highway. So you will show me this year that you can do it. And if you don't do it, Cristiano, love you, great striker. Unless you press for me, I will sell you and I'll go and buy someone else. So I think that's the kind of manager you now need. It's not a disciplinarian, but you need someone that has core tactical fundamentals about his own system in the same way that Tuchel brought that to Chelsea. Tuchel, everyone at Chelsea was a bit like, oh, he's boring. There's no way. Look what he did at PSG. It was boring. Oh, look at Dortmund. They were boring. They weren't boring at all. They were good sides. It's just that maybe at PSG, same issue at United. You had lots of stars, but weren't really doing stuff for him and weren't helping him. They did still get to a Champions League final at PSG, but we did beat them at Man United, and we weren't very good at that point. And we did beat them and probably helped his demise. But I think you go and get a coach that's got those points, Haider. This is the thing. So Zidane, I agree with you. I think there's a little bit of a worry. I think that there are still other jobs that he might fancy more than a Man United job, but I think he's on the list. And then you look along, I know, and I'm looking at our comments as it rolls by here, trying to not to kind of look too much away from my camera, but I can see people talk about Ten Hag and people like this. I think if you're going to do a long project, a 5-year, a 4-year project, then you look at maybe someone like him. There's nothing that tells me what he's done at Ajax that he could reproduce that in the Premier League. There's no pointers that prove that. It's a different world. It's like trying to go onto Mars and breathe air from oxygen that isn't there. So I don't think that he comes to United and becomes the United way. I don't think that works. I mean, you need a manager that's got a bit of everything and that can come to the team and just command authority. And I think maybe that's where Ole's losing it a little bit now. Don't think the players are looking at him and saying, this guy, his tactics are so astute that we'll fix this in 6 weeks. In 6 weeks, we'll have forgotten about this and we'll be okay. I think the squad are looking at it and kind of going, whatever he's asking us to do, we can't really do it with these tactics. We need someone to help us. And I think that's always what you need with a coach. You need someone that comes in to help the team. Antonio Conte is a great coach. He scores goals. He wins games. He wins trophies. And if we're going to do it different, Haider, there isn't anyone out there that does the United way. You just need the way to win. And the way to win is to go and get a coach that's done it before.
Hey, great points here, Rob. There's a lot of, I just want to read out this comment here from Mohammed saying, Conte is not the answer. Wait 2 years, this will explode in front of our very eyes. Just please go and watch the podcast I did with David, because David does a Serie A podcast. He has much more of an insight than myself and Rob, even though Antonio Conte. He's a huge Antonio Conte fan. He does talk about legitimate concerns. One legitimate concern with Conte, Rob, is his Champions League record. I think that's very fair, but David breaks that down, so I'll let you guys go and have a watch of that. And he dispels that he's going to be a Jose 2.0. He's at the peak of his powers. And if you actually look at all of the clubs Antonio Conte has left, I mean, he only really fell out with Diego Costa, but Inter players still absolutely adore him. The Juve players love him. He's a fantastic tactician. But not only that, Rob, he has high standards. And he said this, didn't he? He said that he has high standards of everybody at the club, and everyone has to meet his standards. If you don't meet his standards, then you're out in the cold. I do want to read out a few more comments, Rob, before we talk about it. When it's comment here saying, Conte would only take United mid-season. I think that's fair. Obviously he has got the contract still with Inter, but he's happy to waive that. And there's comments here, Rob, saying, that here, about the United way, first and foremost, is risk taking. I think that's really important. My issue at the moment, Rob, is that this idea of the United way, I feel like the United way is, people are saying we're seeing the United way because of the fact that Ole has a connection with the club. For me, the United way was always entertaining football, attacking football, scoring, winning goals, winning trophies. I said this the other day that I think United's DNA is winning trophies. A lot of people disagree with me. I disagree. That is Manchester United's DNA for me. Playing youth as well. Conte has developed youth. Barella is now one of the best box-to-box midfielders in Europe, probably at the moment. Bastoni is a fantastic centre-back as well. And he did a great job when he was at Chelsea, developing people like Eden Hazard as well. But when we're having a look at all these names being thrown around, Rob, at the end of the day, from what we're seeing right now, any manager that comes in and brings any form of defensive solidity and organization is immediately going to see much better results and a big upturn of results. Rob, I want to read out one more comment here from Reece saying, fun fact, Conte from 2019 to 21, managing Inter, his team scored 170 goals in the same period. This is a great stat. Zidane's Real Madrid, thank you, Reece, for this great comment, scored 137 goals. Apparently, Conte is defensive. No, he isn't. Rob, that's a fantastic stat, isn't it? Conte will, I said this last podcast and you disagree with me, but he will be more of a container. They will contain a little bit more. He won't be pressing like Liverpool do. But at the end of the day, when you're conceding, I believe it was 19 goals in the league, between 15 to 19 when he did at Inter, I mean, that's what wins you titles. Manchester United already conceded 15 with 9 games in.
Yeah, and I think also we need to kind of dispel the Jose version 2.0 myth, because Antonio Conte's football is not the same as Jose Mourinho's, and not when Jose Mourinho was winning titles back in the day with Chelsea, and not now with Jose Mourinho's getting hammered by 6 at Roma away to some minnow. So when you kind of look at it and you look at the shape, and he plays a 3 at the back system. Now that's something we've never seen at Man United before. We've never really had a coach come in and play week after week after week a 3 at the back. So either a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2. You look at United's system, you look at the players that go in that system. 3-5-2 really suits this set of players. So I think that when you look at that 3 from the 3 at the back and you build out from there and look at those areas, you could very, very easily play either Varane with Maguire and Lindelof and have them as a kind of 3 out there. They're all ball players. They can all do it. Or you could put even Wan-Bissaka back there for coverage as one of those 3 and take him away from the wing area where he's not particularly the greatest anyway. So 3-5-2 allows Conte to come to the football club immediately and start coaching that, because stylistically the players suit it. I think also the United way thing, people need to kind of understand the United way is winning. It's about winning. It's about going out there and winning football matches. So someone said there about risk. Risk only is worth it when risk pays off, not when risk allows your opponent to score 5 goals. One other point to add, talking about stylistic issues and principles, is that Liverpool, and looking at Liverpool, they went on that bandwagon for quite a long time on that treadmill about the boot room. Now, the boot room at Liverpool was where they produced all their managers and their coaches. So they did that for years, from Shankly onwards, from Paisley to Joe Fagan, and all the way through into the modern era, into kind of Kenny Dalglish, and even you can include Graham Souness. Of course, he didn't do particularly well. But it was about keeping the philosophy of the football club in-house and building it, until it got to Roy Evans, who was also part of the boot room, and it ended. And you had to go and find something different. And even from that point onwards, for Brendan Rodgers to Jurgen Klopp, it was a process. You took your time to rebuild it. Now Liverpool, one of the most beautiful teams in the world. Yeah, they attack, they play good football, they're defensively sound, they will punish you. Where they take risks, they score goals, but they don't take risks that concede them. So this is what I want to see now. It doesn't have to be a name from the Manchester United archives. It doesn't have to be someone like that. This is why I always say with Ole, he was the right guy, I think, at that point to come in for that 2 years to kind of sort out a lot of the stuff in our own boot room, finding ways behind the scenes to make people believe again. And I think he did that for 2 years. I think he's done that. Year 3 is always the hardest year. So if Conte came to United, and in those 3 years that he was at United, say he won some trophies, played some good football, got us back going again, it's still part of that progress to where you want to be. It's about winning. It's about finding a way. So I think that's kind of the point that we're at now. And I think that's why Conte is my favourite, is that it's not about personalities, Haider. You know, like I always say this about Solskjaer. I don't care that he scored that goal in the Champions League final. I care about what I see on a football pitch as a coach now. This is what I care about. It's a job. It's a business. You know, you have to be businesslike. With Conte, I know that he will come in. I think United fans will love him in that technical area because he's a jack in the box. He'll be doing backflips and everyone will love all of that. And some United fans need that. They need that kind of connection with their manager. You know, they don't feel that obviously with Ole, and they didn't feel it with Van Gaal, and Mourinho got kind of much more of a bench sitter in his next years at United. But I think now we need a head, a brain to come into the football club to fix stuff, because too much stuff is broken. Antonio Conte is a great man, a great manager. He's not divisive. Boards don't fall out with him. He looks at it the other way. He's like, if the board isn't kind of doing something, then he'll challenge it. But he doesn't just kind of up sticks and leave because of football issues. You know, there are other things going on. At Inter, there's an ownership crisis. At Chelsea, there was an ownership crisis at that point when he left the football club. You know, there were things going on behind the scenes that are not football related. I think it comes to United, he's got a really good squad. I think he'll get backed in the transfer market. I think he'll win trophies.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with that. Rob, we're going to wrap up now, guys. Thanks for all your fantastic comments. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, turn those notifications on as well. We are live every single week after each Manchester United game, and there is some more great content coming as well. And make sure you do check out that Conte video, Rob. But final word, where are we sitting right now? I'm sitting here right now, and I think it's the end of the line for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He's done a fantastic rebuilding job. He's for me, I always looked at him as you know, I always say the A to V, don't I? Taking United from A to B, stopping the rot under Jose Mourinho, gutting out the squad, bringing in real quality. you could probably turn around and say, well, you can definitely say for sure that has he left the club in a better position than when he took over? Absolutely 100% yes. For me, that's a success, but he isn't the man to take United to the next level. He isn't the man to coach this squad into winning titles. The thing is, you can tell when people say someone's a cup team, Rob, when I look at Manchester United, I look at Manchester United as a cup team because on their day, they can beat anybody. He can tactically outsmart Guardiola in a one-off fixture. He can do the same with Klopp. But the biggest issue, Rob, is if you want to win a title, you need to have that tactical plan. You need to have that longevity across 38 games. And Manchester United don't have that. He doesn't have that. He doesn't have that in his coaching staff either, which is a problem. So how are you feeling going into it? I mean, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be giving him the Spurs game or the Chelsea or the City game, to be honest, because I think that it's quite clear he can't turn this around. And you're seeing reports now that the players, I just read from the Guardian, the players are they really like Ole, but they've lost belief in his tactical ability. That's never a good sign, is it, when you hear these reports coming out? So how are you feeling sort of with the final word?
Yeah, I don't think United are a cup team. I think they're a bad team. That's what they are. They're a bad team. This is a bad team. Yeah, they're not going to win cups. They're not going to win anything. So, unfortunately, I think kind of when you hit that brick wall, it's more kind of pertinent to tell the truth and then find your way rather than just maintain. So, I think that this is the end of the road for Ole. It's unfortunate for him, but Manchester United carries on. We're a football club. This Manchester United are a historical football team that demands success, that demands to be in the conversation for success at least. This team is mute. They're not even in the conversation anymore. And that's all happened, I think, in a 12 or 13 game period. I said at the start of the season that it was important that United got a good start to this campaign because they didn't get one last year. And what's happened? 13 games in, and we're seeing some of the worst form we've seen since the Mourinho era. So, I think with Jose, it was the right time for him to go. It didn't matter about his CV. It was about what was going on at the football club at that moment of time. And he left, and it was the right thing to do. I think for Ole, unfortunate for him, there are 2 or 3 really good coaches out there in European football that are ready for a big job. That wasn't the case when we got rid of Mourinho. There wasn't really many names. They wanted Pochettino, but he was going to cost a fortune to get out of Tottenham, so that didn't happen. So Ole got that job, not by default, but I think he kind of earned it in maybe a backwards way. And he did fix the back room at Manchester United. But now it's about fixing the front room. What's going on the football pitch? We need to fix what's happening in the system on the actual green turf out there, because it's not happening, and you've got a good set of players. So this squad is a good squad. It should compete. Now go and give it good tactics. It hasn't got good tactics. Again, people will say last year, they'll say to us when we did our shows, oh, we told you it wasn't good and 4-2-3 runs regressive and all of this. And I disagreed with all of that because I think there were some good performances in there and some building performances. They were going somewhere. Now it feels like they're just going backwards. And before you go back too far, Haider, it's really, really important to change stuff, to be honest and be truthful about it while you've got the opportunity. Antonio Conte wants the job. We know he wants the job. Give Antonio Conte the job.
And the last point for myself, Rob, is when there's people turning around saying this isn't a coaching issue, this isn't a system, it's players' mistakes. Look at the bigger picture. That's all I'm going to say. Guys, thank you so much for all your fantastic interaction today. Some fantastic comments, some great questions. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Give us a follow on Twitter as well. That's at TF Masterclass. Follow myself as well at Haider_Rubbani. And give Rob a follow as well at _Rob_B. Have a fantastic rest of the day, and we will see you next time.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.